the thin veil between tradition and terror. Hello, dear viewers, and welcome back to our haunted storytelling channel, where we explore the darkest corners of human history, culture, and belief systems. If you're here for spine-chilling tales or simply curious about the macabre side of traditions still alive today, then buckle up, you're in for a ride. Today, we're diving deep into 10 disturbing rituals still practiced around the world. These rituals span continents, cultures, and centuries, blending ancient superstitions with modern practices. While some may view them as sacred rites, others might find their methods unsettling, bizarre, or downright horrifying. From blood sacrifices to exorcisms, these ceremonies challenge our understanding of morality, spirituality, and humanity itself. And prepare yourself for a journey into the shadowy realms of ritualistic practices that continue to exist in our world today. By the end of this video, you'll see how thin the line truly is between reverence and terror. Let's begin. The Sati ceremony, a widow's sacrifice. One of the most infamous and disturbing rituals in history is Sati, a practice originating in parts of India. Though officially banned by British colonial authorities in 1829, isolated cases have been reported even in recent decades. Sati involves a widow immolating herself on her husband's funeral pyre, supposedly as an act of devotion and loyalty. Historically, women who refused to participate were ostracized or pressured into compliance by family members and community elders. In some instances, widows were drugged or physically forced onto the pyre. The ritual stems from patriarchal beliefs that a woman's life loses meaning after her husband's death, making her sacrifice not just honorable but necessary. Modern accounts describe villagers gathering around the pyre, chanting prayers while flames consume the widow. Witnesses claim to hear screams cut short by roaring fire, leaving behind charred remains and lingering questions about free will versus coercion. Despite legal prohibitions, remote rural areas occasionally revive this horrific tradition, often under the guise of cultural preservation. For those unfamiliar with Sati, it serves as a stark reminder of how deeply ingrained societal expectations can override basic human rights, and how easily such horrors can resurface when laws are ignored. The Yanomami endocannibalism. Right deep within the Amazon rainforest, the Yanomami people practice a form of endocannibalism, a ritual involving the consumption of deceased loved ones. Unlike cannibalism driven by hunger or aggression, endocannibalism is performed as a spiritual act meant to honor the dead and ensure their safe passage to the afterlife. When a member of the tribe dies, their body is burned until only ashes remain. Family members then mix these ashes with plantain soup and consume the mixture during a ceremonial feast. This act symbolizes unity with the departed soul and ensures their essence becomes part of the living community once more. While outsiders may recoil at the thought, the Yanomami believe this ritual prevents the spirit of the deceased from wandering aimlessly in limbo. Elders teach younger generations that failing to perform the rite invites misfortune upon the entire village. Some anthropologists argue that endocannibalism fosters a profound connection between life, death, and rebirth, a cycle essential to Yanomami cosmology. Still, the idea of consuming human remains challenges Western sensibilities, blurring the boundaries between respect for the dead and taboo behavior. It's a haunting glimpse into how different cultures navigate grief and mortality. The Thaipusam festival, piercing flesh for divine favor. Held annually in countries like Malaysia, Singapore, and India, the Thaipusam festival honors Lord Murugan, the Hindu god of war. Participants undergo extreme physical trials as acts of penance, gratitude, or plea for divine intervention. One of the most shocking aspects of Thaipusam is the elaborate body piercings endured by devotees. Men skewer their cheeks, tongues, and backs with hooks, spears, and needles, sometimes carrying kavadis, ornate frames adorned with offerings, that weigh up to 50 kilograms. Women shave their heads or walk barefoot over hot coals. All participants fast beforehand and enter a trance-like state facilitated by drumming, chanting, and incense. Medical professionals have expressed concern over potential infections and long-term damage caused by these rituals. Yet devotees insist they feel no pain due to divine protection. Many report experiencing visions or hearing voices during the process, reinforcing their faith in Murugan's power. To outsiders, Thaipusam appears brutal and barbaric. To practitioners, however, It represents ultimate devotion, a willingness to endure suffering to prove one's worthiness before the gods. Whether viewed as an act of courage or fanaticism, Thaipism leaves an indelible impression on all who witness it. The Famadihana, turning the bones in Madagascar, the Malagasy people observe Famadihana, or the turning of the bones, a ritual designed to reconnect families with their ancestors. Every few years, relatives exhume the bodies of deceased loved ones, wrap them in fresh cloth, and dance with them to live music. The celebration culminates in sharing food, stories, and blessings before reburying the remains. At first glance, Famadihana seems like a joyful commemoration of life and legacy. However, its darker undertones emerge when considering the logistics. Decomposing corpses are handled without gloves or protective gear, raising concerns about hygiene and disease transmission. Moreover, some families reportedly refuse to bury certain individuals entirely, keeping their mummified remains in crypts indefinitely. Anthropologists suggest that Famadihana reflects the Malagasy belief in a permeable boundary between the living and the dead. Ancestors are considered active participants in daily life, capable of influencing fortune or misfortune. By maintaining close ties with the deceased, families hope to secure prosperity and protection. While culturally significant, Famadihana forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about death, decay, and the lengths we go to preserve connections with those who've passed. The Whipping Boys of Konomi Shrine, located in Japan, the Konomi Shrine hosts an annual ritual known as Hadaka Matsuri, or the Naked Festival. Thousands of men strip down to loincloths and compete to touch a sacred wooden stick called the shinji. The event is loud, chaotic, and physically demanding, but nothing compares to the role of the Whipping Boys. Selected volunteers whip themselves repeatedly with bamboo rods as a form of purification. Blood flows freely as they chant prayers, believing their self-inflicted wounds cleanse both themselves and the crowd. Spectators cheer them on, convinced that witnessing such displays brings good luck and wards off evil spirits. Though intended as a spiritual exercise, Hadaka Matsuri raises ethical questions about glorifying violence and promoting harmful behaviors. Critics argue that encouraging public self-harm perpetuates toxic notions of masculinity and endurance. Supporters counter that the ritual fosters camaraderie and reinforces communal bonds. Regardless of perspective, watching grown men flay themselves in pursuit of divine favor leaves a lasting impact, one that oscillates between admiration and horror. The Black Mass. Worshipping darkness. Originating in medieval Europe, the Black Mass is a satanic ritual aimed at mocking Christian liturgy and summoning demonic entities. Though largely associated with witchcraft hysteria of the past, variations of the Black Mass persist in occult circles worldwide. Participants typically gather in dimly lit spaces, using inverted crosses, desecrated hosts, and animal sacrifices to invoke dark forces. Chants, incantations, and orgiastic acts accompany the proceedings, creating an atmosphere of chaos and depravity. Modern adaptations incorporate elements of performance art, blurring the line between genuine worship and theatrical spectacle. Reports of Black Masses resurfacing in urban settings have sparked outrage among religious communities. Opponents accuse practitioners of blasphemy and moral corruption, while defenders frame the ritual as an expression of freedom and rebellion against oppressive institutions. Whether real or staged, the Black Mass embodies humanity's fascination with forbidden knowledge and the allure of embracing darkness. Its persistence underscores the timeless struggle between light and shadow within the human psyche. The baby-tossing ritual of Solapur. In the heart of Maharashtra, nestled among cotton fields and bustling markets, lies the city of Solapur. Known for its rich textile industry and historical significance, Solapur is also home to one of the most controversial rituals in modern India, the Balavandan, or as it's more commonly known, the baby-tossing ritual. Once a year, during a festival dedicated to Yellamma, Solapur's revered mother goddess, the ritual unfolds on the rooftop of an ancient temple. Crowds gather below, eyes fixed skyward. Priests chant hymns, smoke from incense coils drifts into the air, and parents clutch their infants tightly, whispering prayers under their breath. Then, with a nod from the head priest, the ceremony begins. From a height of up to 30 feet, babies are dropped, sometimes one at a time, sometimes 2 or 3 together, into a waiting net made of sturdy cloth held tight by a group of men standing shoulder to shoulder. The fall lasts mere seconds, but it feels like an eternity to the watching crowd. Gasps mix with cheers when the child lands safely, cries echoing momentarily before being soothed by eager hands reaching through the fabric. According to local belief, this act isn't cruelty, it's blessing. The ritual is said to ward off evil spirits, ensure long life and good health, and mark the child's entry into the world in the presence of the goddess. It's not forced. Families come willingly, often traveling from distant villages, believing that skipping the ritual could bring misfortune upon them and their ancestral line. Origins steeped in myth. No one knows exactly how old the ritual is. Some say it dates back hundreds, perhaps even thousands of years. Others point to regional folklore that tells of a childless queen who was granted a son only after offering a foundling boy to the goddess Yalama in this dramatic fashion. According to legend, the child survived the fall unharmed, and soon after, the queen gave birth to her own son. Word spread, and the practice took root. Over centuries, the ritual became a symbol of devotion. As industrialization crept into rural India, many traditional practices faded. But here, in Solapur, Balavandin endured. To many locals, it was proof of divine protection, a test of faith that had been passed down through generations. Even those who left for cities returned every few years with their children, ensuring they too were tossed into the arms of the goddess. A divided city. Not everyone in Solapur supports the ritual. Among the younger generation, especially those educated in urban centers, there is growing discomfort. Social media has exposed them to international reactions, where videos of crying infants being dropped from rooftops have gone viral, prompting horror, condemnation, and calls for legal action. Human rights activists have described the ritual as a form of child abuse. Child welfare organizations argue that the psychological trauma inflicted on the infants, though invisible, can be lasting. Medical experts cite the potential for injury, even death, should anything go wrong during the toss, yet authorities remain hesitant to intervene decisively. In recent decades, several attempts have been made to ban the ritual, including high-profile court cases and police interventions. But each time, resistance arises. Protests erupt. Temples fill with devotees demanding their right to practice what they see as an intrinsic part of their faith. And so, the ritual continues. For many families, the decision to participate is not taken lightly. Parents speak of dreams and omens, of ancestors appearing in visions, urging them to complete the ritual lest calamity strike. Some believe that if a child is not tossed, they may suffer illness or bad luck later in life. Others claim that those who skip the ritual and face tragedy afterward do so because of their disobedience to the goddess. The day of the toss. On the morning of the ritual, the temple compound buzzes with activity. Women wear traditional saris, men dress in clean dhotis. Children run around, unaware of the spectacle unfolding above. Food stalls sell sweets and snacks, turning the event into something akin to a fair. But tension lingers beneath the surface. A line forms near the temple stairs, winding all the way down to the main entrance. Each family waits their turn. Some arrive early to secure better timing. Others wait until the last moment, nerves evident in their trembling hands. Inside the sanctum sanctorum, priests perform blessings over the infants. They smear vermilion on the babies' foreheads, tie sacred threads around their wrists, and whisper mantras meant to invoke divine protection. Then, the climb begins. Up narrow stone steps, past hanging marigolds and flickering oil lamps, the parent and child reach the rooftop. There, the priest gestures toward the edge. Below, dozens of volunteers hold the sheet taut, shifting slightly to adjust for wind direction and weight distribution. One parent holds the child. Another looks away. A final prayer. Then, without warning, the baby is let go. The fall is swift. The sheet flutters briefly before catching the child. Cheers erupt from the crowd. The baby is quickly retrieved, handed back to the relieved parent, whose tears are now mixed with joy. Another family steps forward. This repeats dozens of times throughout the day. Voices from within. I know it sounds strange, says Ramesh Pavar, a factory worker from a nearby village. He brought his 6-month-old daughter to the ritual. But I saw my brother's child get tossed. She's healthy, smart, lucky. I want the same for mine. His wife nods beside him. We don't do this because we enjoy it. We do it because we must. Others express similar sentiments. It's not about us, says Lata Deshmukh, a grandmother who traveled from Mumbai. It's about the gods. If we displease them, who will protect us? Still, not all participants are convinced. I didn't want to do it, confessed young mother Priya Shelka. My husband insisted. He said our child would be cursed otherwise. But when I saw her drop, I almost fainted. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself. Legal battles and ethical dilemmas. The controversy surrounding the baby tossing ritual has spilled into the courts. Multiple petitions have been filed calling for its immediate ban. Human rights lawyers argue that the practice violates the Juvenile Justice Act and the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act. Others cite the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which India ratified in 1992. In 2016, the Bombay High Court issued a temporary injunction against the ritual. For a brief period, the tossing stopped. But protests erupted across Solapur. Thousands marched through the streets, carrying effigies of the goddess and chanting slogans defending their traditions. Temple leaders threatened to shut down operations unless the order was revoked. Under political pressure, and wary of sparking religious unrest, the government eventually backed down. The injunction was lifted, citing cultural sensitivity and lack of substantial evidence proving harm. Since then, no concrete legal action has been taken. Child psychologists warn that while physical injuries may be rare, the emotional impact on infants cannot be ignored. At that age, babies haven't developed the ability to process fear rationally, explains Dr. Ananya Sen, a pediatric psychologist based in Pune. They experience terror, confusion, pain. These events leave imprints on the developing brain. Yet these concerns rarely penetrate the deeply rooted beliefs of the community. A cultural crossroads. The Balavandan ritual brings to light a complex struggle between tradition and progress, faith and science, personal freedom and collective responsibility. To outsiders, the sight of a baby being thrown from a rooftop seems barbaric, primitive. But to those within the culture, it is an expression of devotion, a communal bond, and a way of honoring ancestral customs. Anthropologists describe it as an example of ritualistic risk-taking, behavior designed to demonstrate commitment to a higher power or social order. Similar practices exist in other parts of the world, such as fire-walking ceremonies or male circumcision rites, where perceived spiritual benefits outweigh the risks involved. What makes the baby-tossing ritual particularly contentious is the involvement of non-consenting participants, infants too young to understand or refuse. This raises uncomfortable questions. Where does cultural autonomy end? At what point should society intervene to protect individuals from harmful traditions? Echoes of the past. Some scholars suggest that the ritual may have evolved from older agricultural or fertility rites common across South Asia. In cultures where infant mortality was high, symbolic acts of testing a child's strength might have reinforced communal hope and resilience. Others argue that the practice began as a way to prove divine favor, especially in communities vulnerable to droughts, famines, and disease. Surviving the toss could be seen as a sign that the child was chosen by the gods, destined for greatness. Whatever its origins, the ritual has become a focal point for debates about identity, belonging, and the limits of tolerance. The future of the ritual. As awareness grows, so too does scrutiny. More parents are questioning the necessity of the ritual. Some opt instead for symbolic alternatives, placing the child gently on the cloth without tossing, or simply bypassing the act altogether while still participating in other aspects of the festival. Meanwhile, NGOs continue to campaign for reform. They organize workshops, distribute pamphlets, and collaborate with local doctors and educators to promote child-safe alternatives. There are signs of change, however slow and uneven. In 2023, a local priest named Ganesh Bhandarkar caused a stir when he declared publicly that the ritual should be replaced with a symbolic gesture, something that honored the tradition without putting children at risk. His words were met with both praise and anger. He was labeled a traitor by some, a visionary by others. I've seen mothers cry after handing over their babies. he said in an interview. "I've felt their fear. Maybe it's time we find another way to show our devotion." The Day of the Dead, celebrating life through death in the quiet village of San Miguel de Allende, nestled in the heart of Mexico's central highlands. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of marigolds. The wind carried whispers through the cobbled streets as children dressed in white shirts and black pants ran barefoot past brightly painted houses, their laughter echoing against the stone walls. It was early November, the time of Dia de los Muertos. For outsider eyes, it may have seemed a festive occasion, rich with color and music, but for those who truly understood its meaning, it was something far more profound. This was not merely a celebration, it was a communion, a sacred journey between life and death, an acceptance that both were part of the same circle. Every year on the 1st and 2nd of November, families across Mexico embraced this ancient tradition rooted in pre-Hispanic beliefs. The Aztecs, along with other Mesoamerican civilizations, viewed death not as an end, but as a continuation, a transformation of the soul into another realm. To them, the dead did not vanish. They simply traveled to another layer of existence, one that could be reached through offerings, prayers, and remembrance. Photographs of loved ones were arranged carefully, each face surrounded by delicate sugar skulls inscribed with names in bright icing. Incense burned slowly, copal resin releasing curling tendrils of smoke that danced like ghosts rising from their slumber. The aroma was earthy, musky, ancient, and comforting. But the most powerful element of the ofrenda was the writing. Small pieces of paper called papel picado, intricately cut into skull shapes and floral designs, fluttered above the altars. Some families went further, penning heartfelt letters to those who had passed. These notes were sometimes read aloud at gravesites, voices trembling with emotion as memories surfaced. For young honorees, the Day of the Dead was deeply personal. Her mother, Elena, had died 3 years earlier during childbirth. She never met her sister, and though she barely remembered her mother's voice, she still felt her presence. Anna's father, Carlos, built the family altar each year, placing a small doll next to Elena's photo to represent the daughter she never held. Anna, now 10, helped arrange the candles, her fingers careful around the wax. "Mommy," she whispered, "we made your favorite chocolate mole." Her voice was soft, reverent. Carlos watched silently, his own grief tucked behind a mask of strength. He missed Elena in ways he couldn't express, not just in loss, but in the absence of moments yet to come. Birthdays without her laughter, school recitals without her applause. On the night of November 1st, Anna and her father joined the procession winding toward the local cemetery. Lanterns glowed in every window, illuminating the faces of the villagers as they walked together, united in mourning and memory. Marigold petals marked the path, scattered like breadcrumbs leading the spirits home. As they reached the graveyard, the air grew cooler. Tombs were adorned with fresh flowers, candles, and ribbons. Grave markers gleamed under the moonlight, some simple crosses, others elaborate sculptures of saints and angels. Music filled the air, slow, mournful ballads played on vihuelas and guitars. Carlos lit a candle before Elena's grave, whispering words only he knew. Anna placed a small clay figure beside the tombstone, one of the many skulls she'd painted herself. Around them, other families gathered in circles, sharing stories and songs. Some wept openly, while others laughed, recalling funny memories. This was the essence of Dia de los Muertos, not sadness, not fear, but acceptance. Here death was not hidden or feared. It was embraced, acknowledged as part of the cycle. There was no shame in crying, no taboo in speaking of the dead. In fact, silence would have been disrespectful. The concept of La Catrina, the elegantly dressed skeleton created by artist José Guadalupe Posada, was a reminder that death spared no one, rich or poor, beautiful or plain. Everyone wore the same costume in the end. And so, children wore masks fashioned after skeletons, their faces painted white, red lips grinning beneath dark eye sockets. Adults danced in costumes stitched with bones and lace, celebrating the inevitability of life's end. The fire walking ceremony of Fiji fire walking, or Villavilairivo, is a sacred ritual practiced by the Sawau clan of Bika Island, Fiji. Participants traverse beds of burning embers without sustaining burns, allegedly protected by ancestral spirits. Preparation involves fasting, meditation, and strict adherence to taboos leading up to the ceremony. Scientists attribute the phenomenon to physics, suggesting that ash insulates feet from direct heat exposure. However, locals dismiss such explanations, insisting that success depends solely on faith and obedience to tradition. Failure to follow protocol results in severe burns, or worse, divine punishment. Tourists flock to witness Villavillarivo, marveling at the apparent defiance of natural laws. Yet beneath the spectacle lies a sobering reality. Fire walking tests not just physical resilience but spiritual purity. Those deemed unworthy risk injury or humiliation, serving as cautionary tales for future generations. Fire walking epitomizes the intersection of science and superstition, challenging us to reconcile empirical evidence with mystical conviction. It also reminds us that bravery often requires surrendering control to forces beyond comprehension. The exorcisms of Romania remains a hotspot for exorcisms, particularly in rural areas where Orthodox Christianity blends seamlessly with folklore. Priests routinely perform rituals to expel demons believed responsible for illnesses, bad luck, or erratic behavior. Methods range from reciting prayers to beating afflicted individuals with whips made of blessed wood. Victims frequently convulse, scream, or speak in unfamiliar languages during exorcisms. Families watch anxiously, hoping for deliverance but fearing failure. Documentaries capturing these events reveal scenes of raw emotion and desperation, highlighting the thin line between healing and harm. Critics accuse clergy of exploiting vulnerable populations, arguing that mental health issues are misdiagnosed as demonic possession. Proponents counter that exorcisms address ailments medicine cannot cure, restoring balance to fractured lives. Regardless of stance, the sheer intensity of these encounters leaves an undeniable mark on observers. Exorcisms remind us that humanity's relationship with the unknown remains fraught with uncertainty and fear. They also underscore the enduring power of faith, and the dangers of misplaced trust. Embracing the unexplainable, and there you have it, our exploration of 10 disturbing rituals still practiced around the world. From fiery pyres to bone-filled feasts, these ceremonies offer a glimpse into the diverse ways humans seek connection, meaning, and transcendence. While some may inspire awe, others provoke discomfort, or outright revulsion. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of ritualistic practices that defy easy categorization. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with friends who appreciate the darker side of human nature. Let me know in the comments which ritual fascinated or disturbed you the most, and if there's another topic you'd like me to cover in future episodes. Until next time, remember, the world is full of wonders and terrors alike. Stay curious, stay open-minded, and always tread carefully when venturing into the unknown. Good night, and sweet dreams, if you can manage them.